Hey everyone, welcome back to In Class with Dr. T, where history meets the present and where we ask tough questions about race, politics, and power. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who cares about human liberation and economic justice. This will help the channel grow and keep this conversation going. And here's today's question for the comments. Do you think Black millionaires and entrepreneurs are helping or hurting the broader Black community? And what economic models do you think would actually uplift Black people? I say Black people because unfortunately, disproportionately, except for Native Americans perhaps, Blacks still remain at the bottom of the socioeconomic pyramid. So drop your thoughts below. I will be replying to all the comments. I want all the smoke. We've all heard the stories from Madam C.J. Walker to Damian John to Robert F. Smith, Black entrepreneurs who made it despite the odds. But here's the real question. Are these stories just symbols? Are they solutions? Is Black capitalism lifting up the community or distracting us from real justice? Today, we're breaking down the hard truth, how Black entrepreneurship can be both inspiring and misleading. Let's start with the foundation. It's called capitalism. Capitalism in America wasn't neutral. It was built partially on racial slavery. Black bodies were the first capital that generated wealth. However, African Americans were never allowed to own anything, with a few exceptions. Even after emancipation, systems like sharecropping, Jim Crow, redlining, and employment discrimination kept and in some ways continues to keep Black people locked out of real ownership. In fact, keeps everyone out of ownership. It's only a small percentage of Americans who are truly millionaires or highly successful entrepreneurs. So when we talk about Black capitalism, we have to ask, are we joining a game that was rigged from the start? Now, don't get it twisted. Black entrepreneurs have done incredible things. Madam C.J. Walker built a hair care empire in the early 20th century, and she employed thousands of Black women. John H. Johnson gave us Ebony and Jet magazine. He made millions while showing the nuance of Black life. Robert F. Smith made headlines for paying off the entire Morehouse graduation class. These moments matter. They inspire pride. They show possibility and push back against centuries of being told we were less than. Also, entrepreneurship should be encouraged. Small businesses in particular are super important in all communities. We should not, and I repeat, not vilify entrepreneurs. In most cases, entrepreneurs are heroes. They do heroic things. I'm not against them. But here's the problem. When we celebrate symbolic victories, we often stop pushing for structural change. So if only one or a couple percentage of African Americans actually own and control million-dollar businesses, we need to think about that. Because success stories can mask inequality, making it seem like racism is over, or equally important that with hard work, all people can become multimillionaires, the mantra that is pushed. If they made it, anyone can. But that's not how this system works. Let's be honest. Most people, and certainly most Black people, aren't wealthy business owners. In fact, most people of any race or ethnicity are not owning corporations, and certainly are not millionaires, and even less multimillionaires. Many are still stuck in cycles of debt, job insecurity, and housing instability. And in fact, there's never been a moment in American history where any race or class have been successful entrepreneurs. Yet the narrative of Black excellence often says, hustle harder, grind your way out. But what happens when banks don't lend you capital? Your neighborhood is underfunded. Your labor is always undervalued. Suddenly, entrepreneurship stops being an easy solution and often becomes a trap where we blame the victim. And let's not forget, some wealthy Black elites become part of this oppressive class. Do you know that during slavery, there were Blacks who owned other Black slaves? So it's not surprising that small groups of Black elites would actually be defenders of a system that creates inequality, ignoring poverty, or aligning with corporate greed. W.E.B. Du Bois, a scholar activist from the late 19th century and 20th century, talked about the talented 10th. He said the talented 10th would lead the so-called race. In this case, he was talking about African Americans, to freedom. He thought an elite few would uplift the rest. But even W.E.B. Du Bois, years later, would denounce this idea. But interestingly, it still is a very powerful idea that lives on, even though he denounced it. I mean, in 2025, we have to ask, do we really need a talented 10th? And in these times, when we talk about the talented 10th, we're talking about successful businessmen, far too often represented in forms of entertainment, particularly the music industry, has spouted in the last 20, 30 years a class of Black millionaires and Black businesses that have even allowed a few to become billionaires. And then there are some select other examples. But instead of putting this talented 10th on a pedestal, shouldn't we have a collective solution for the 100%? Many Black elites are too far removed from the daily realities of poverty, policing, and discrimination. Their success doesn't always translate into freedom for the community. Again, it's not my job to put them down, but I would like to think about alternatives that includes the 100%, right? So I'm not even saying the 99. There's room for millionaires, but let's think about all of our community. For example, let's look at Finland and Norway, two countries that do not rely on billionaire saviors to solve poverty or to help the distressed working middle class. These countries, they guarantee universal health care, tuition-free college, generous paid parental leave, affordable housing and child care, robust union protections. The result, low poverty, less inequality, stronger communities. I would like to give some ideas. I'm not saying that we have to have all of these policies, but these are policies to rally around, to bring the communities together that would bring the 100% for us all. For example, baby bonds. What are baby bonds? Baby bonds are government-backed trust accounts established at birth for every child, with large amounts given to children from lower wealth families. The funds grow over time, right? So when you're 1 to 18, every year you get 1,000 or 2,000 in your account. And then you assess it in adulthood for wealth building activities like buying a home, starting a business, or getting more education. Why would this matter in the Black community? Well, for one, the median white family has 8 to 10 times the wealth of the median Black family in the US. That gap is not about income, it's about intergenerational wealth, inheritance. Baby bonds would begin to reverse centuries of wealth deprivation caused by slavery, redlining, and discriminatory lending. Some of the benefits it would redistribute opportunity from the top downward, creates assets for those who start with nothing, doesn't require children to hustle their way to wealth. It recognizes the structural harm. Who's backing it? Well, economists like Derek Hamilton and William Doherty have been the long champions of baby bonds. So is the senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. Universal but targeted solution, right? So this is a solution that anyone of any race or ethnicity could participate in, but it could have a disproportionate impact for the better for African Americans. What about guaranteed jobs and income? I'm talking about two possible policies here. A federal job guarantee where the government ensures anyone who wants to work can find a living wage job. A universal basic income which provides a regular unconditional cash payment to all adults. Again, how would this impact African Americans in particular, since they're the ones disproportionately still at the bottom of the society? Black Americans have historically faced higher unemployment and more economic precarity, even when the economy is good. A guaranteed job or income would offer economic dignity, especially in areas disinvested by corporations. The benefits undermine the coercive power of low-wage exploitative labor, strengthens bargaining power for all workers, recognizes care work, artistic labor, and community organizing as socially valuable. You know who supported these ideas, basic income, guaranteed jobs? Martin Luther King Jr. Him and Bayard Rustin and the great labor organizer A. Philip Randolph all supported a guaranteed income and a jobs program. And they wrote about it in the Freedom Budget. You should read about the Freedom Budget, and I will provide a link to a PDF of the Freedom Budget. Very important. Another program could be land trust to keep neighborhoods affordable. Community land trust. What would this entail? A community land trust, CLT, is a nonprofit that owns land and ensures it stays permanently affordable for housing, farming, or local business use. Residents lease land but own their homes, which could be bought and sold with equity caps to keep costs down. Again, how does this matter for Black communities? Black families have been repeatedly pushed out of neighborhoods through gentrification, urban renewal, predatory lending. CLTs resist displacement by decommodifying land, taking it off the speculative market and keeping it in community control. Keeps long-term residents in place, prevents profit-driven development from displacing Black and brown people or poor whites, right? Again, these are universal programs. Builds intergenerational stability through shared ownership. And again, there are real-world examples. The Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative in Boston, the Houston Community Land Trust are African-American-led efforts preserving affordable housing. What about cooperative businesses that share profits, not hoard them? Worker cooperatives are businesses that are owned and managed by their workers, not distant shareholders or CEOs, right? Profits are shared equitably and decisions are made democratically, right? So it doesn't mean that profits are even shared equally, but profits are shared more equitably based upon meritocracy or other factors. Again, this would be good for the Black community because Black workers have historically faced discrimination in hiring, pay, and promotion Cooperatives give workers economic control, right? It's worker owned, more likely to create jobs without discrimination if done right. It builds collective wealth instead of individual billionaires, encourages democratic decisions. So those decisions would be good for people in the community, and it has accountability. It anchors wealth locally, especially in disinvested areas. This is nothing new. You would think about the colored farmers, the National Alliance in the 1880s, to Fannie Lou Hamer's Freedom Farm. Black cooperatives have a long tradition in the US, been often erased from mainstream economic narratives. So these are all proposals that can be done in a variety of different ways, but I'm stating them to show that there are a variety of different ways in which we can work within a capitalist system, but maintain priorities for everyday workers, to lower racial inequality, lower inequality overall, and still give opportunity to entrepreneurs, still allow people to become multimillionaires, right? I mean, this is not a dream. These are proposals that can be done through our political process. And this would help the African American community, but would help all communities. Here's the truth. Black entrepreneurship isn't the enemy, but it's also not the answer. In other words, we don't need everyone to try to be a millionaire. We need to fight for systematic change. We don't need only symbolism. We need solidarity, structure, and shared power. So let me ask you again, what do you think? Is Black capitalism helping or hurting? Should we still believe in the talented 10th or build for the 100%? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video. Even if you disagree, like it anyway, if it made you think. Share it with someone who's ready for real talk. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got to have more conversations. We've got to think more deeply about how we can build economic opportunity. Thanks for watching, and always stay critical, stay curious, and stay connected. Thank you.